Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be looking at recursion, what it is, why it's insanely powerful, and how you can start playing with it. Recursion is somewhat esoteric and has a steep learning curve, but hopefully we'll overcome that together today. Personally, I find it to be an extraordinarily zen and meditative concept once you get into the flow of it. So I hope you feel closer to coding enlightenment by the end of this video. One of the most basic things you can do in programming is set the value of a variable. X equals 1, y equals hello world, and so on. Now you can access that 1 or that hello world using x and y instead of writing them out each time. You also know that methods you write return values. So if you make a hello world method and it returns the string hello world, you can define the variable y, or actually in this case z. You can define the variable z to call the function hello world, but what will be stored is the return value. In this case, it's the string hello world. Bearing in mind that fact, that you can set variables to be the result of calling methods, you're ready to learn that recursion is where you call a method inside itself, often setting it to be a variable, but that needn't be the case. When you do that, it's important to set a break condition that tells your method to stop calling itself. And that would be something like, if it's been run a certain number of times, or if something is no longer true, then stop recursing. If you fail to do this, you'll have a method that calls itself infinitely, and you'll get a memory error on your computer called a stack overflow, unless your computer is smart enough to recognize it and break the operation for you. It's not as dramatic as it sounds, but you'll probably have to force quit whatever program is running to get it to stop. I've certainly done that a few times, and expect to do it more by accident in the future. In this example that I have here for you, we have a method called hello to 100 worlds, and you know what that's going to do? It's going to greet the whole galaxy for you. Check this out. So we only call the hello to 100 worlds explicitly once, but it's called implicitly by itself 99 more times. That's the power of recursion. Your potential output per line of code is dramatically higher than it would be without it, because you can set it to execute multiple times on its own if some predefined condition is met. In this case, that the count that's being passed as a param is less than or equal to 100. But if I ran it without taking any params at all, or without this condition here, it would just run forever, and then we'd have problems. Now, I'd like to point out something significant here, which is that when you do recursion, your program doesn't necessarily run in the normal linear order. See this on line, or see if you uncomment this line here, line 18, what do you think will happen? It should say hello world, and then on the next line say 1, and then on the next line say hello world, and then the next line say 2, and so on to 100. But that's not what happens, is it? What's going on here? Why is it putting hello world and then 100, and then hello world 99, and so on, all the way down, and so we really only have 1, which is what we pass to it explicitly as the count, happening at the very end. In normal method execution, you're used to top to bottom, right to left interpretation, but there's an additional down and back up layer of motion to get acclimated to with recursion. What's really going on here is that when you explicitly call the function on line 22, as soon as it hits the recursive call on line 16, you're down the rabbit hole, and there's no coming back till the base case sends you back up. What do I mean by that, though? So line 14 runs, line 16, and these subsequent lines, 17 and 18, don't run until 16 is finished. But because line 16 gets hit a third time over the course of running it a second time, it gets called a fourth time, and so on and so on and so on for 100 times. And so the only time that puts hello world ever gets hit and the only time that puts count ever gets hit, I should say for the first time, is on the 100th call. And then once that is satisfied, the condition, this greater condition of count is less than or equal to 100 is satisfied, and so the hello to 100 worlds method finishes for the 100th time, and it's done. And so now all of a sudden line 16 on the 99th call is satisfied, and so it can do the putsing hello world and then puts count. Now that call is satisfied, and so the previous one is free to run as well. That's the 98th, and so on and so on. And so that's your coming back up motion, and that's why you see this phenomenon of the order that things print out are the first one that gets called is actually the last one that gets executed. Recursion is pretty complicated, but I encourage you to think about it and enjoy the mind trip as you imagine ways to apply it. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. As always, I'm already looking forward to seeing you in the next one.